The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Before the feast of Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to pass from this world to the Father. He loved his own in the world, and he loved them to the end. The devil had already induced Judas, son of Simon the Iscariot, to hand him over. So during supper, fully aware that the Father had put everything into his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God, he rose from supper and took off his outer garments. He took a towel and tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and dry them with the towel around his waist. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Master, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus answered and said to him, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but you will understand later." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "Unless I wash you, you will have no inheritance with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Master, then not only my feet, but my hands and head as well." Jesus said to him, "Whoever has bathed has no need except to have his feet washed, for he is clean all over. So you are clean, but not all." For he knew who would betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." So when he had washed their feet and put his garments back on, and reclined at table again, he said to them, "Do you realize what I have done for you? You call me teacher and master, and rightly so, for indeed I am. If I, therefore, the master and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash one another's feet. I have given you a model to follow, so that as I have done for you, you should also do." The Gospel of the Lord. On this feast of the institution of the Holy Eucharist, on this feast of the institution of holy orders, on this 75th anniversary year of Transfiguration Parish, let us speak of Father Cornelius Normoyle, the first pastor of Transfiguration Parish. I hope that some of you had the opportunity to pick up the small prayer card waiting for you at the entrance doors. If not, we have certainly many as you leave tonight. And what you will see on this beautiful prayer card is a photograph of our first pastor. It shows him at the door, not the front door, but the side door of our first parish church, down at the corner of Ferndale and Harvester. By the way, it shows him with his faithful dog, and the original photograph that we used for this prayer card on the back says Father Cornelius Normoyle, and then below it it says dog Padre. What a great name for a priest's dog. And I was excited to distribute this prayer card because I have a deep and profound gratitude to this priest. I never met him. In fact, now there are very few still living who remember him. Mona Emmerfall, our parishioner, and perhaps one or two others who go all the way back to the first days. And what remarkable first days they were. Father Normoyle was assigned to start a new parish by Archbishop John Gregory Murray in 1939. He was given no money to do it. He was given nothing but the mandate, go start the parish. And he did it. Mona can still tell you she was there. Mona Emmerfall was there at the first Mass, and the first Masses held not in a church, not in a home, but in a bar, Landy's Tavern. If you've got to have Mass somewhere, why not a tavern? And this remarkable priest slowly, patiently built up this parish over its first 12 years. He built the small white clapboard church that you see in a portion of this photograph, a church that later ones would recognize as the convent of the sisters who were here, and later as the all-purpose youth activities center. That was the church, and that was the church until shortly after his time had passed here. The school on top of the church was built on that site. And I am a great admirer of this priest. He is a hero to me, and I hope he is a hero to all of us. And it was only a year ago that I learned more about this remarkable priest. I learned that he had been in World War I, and like so many who went over there in that war, he was attacked by the enemy with mustard gas, which made a permanent impact on his nervous system, his ability to move, to stand, to function. And yet he went on to become a priest. And here at Transfiguration Parish, his condition from the mustard gas was so severe that he needed to ask special permission from the Vatican to be seated as he said Mass. And we know this because of a young man, really a boy at the time, a boy who lived right down on Century, part of the Miller family, back behind where McDonald's is now. And this young fellow would come over to do all the chores that Father Norma could not do, to mow the lawn, to shovel the sidewalks, and so forth. And he was so inspired by this priest, who quietly and with great suffering built Transfiguration Parish in its first days, that he himself felt the calling to the priesthood. He joined the Franciscans. He ultimately was ordained and took as a religious name Vianney, named for St. John Vianney, the patron saint of parish priests. And Father Vianney Miller was sent by the Franciscans as a missionary to Brazil, where he is alive and serving to this day. The first vocation from Transfiguration Parish. Father Cornelius Normoyle was what some would call a meat and potatoes priest. Nothing fancy, nothing flamboyant, but he was sent here by his bishop, and he came here and devoted 12 years in starting and building this parish. And on this 75th anniversary, and on this feast of the institution of the Eucharist and of the holy orders and priesthood, can we take a moment to thank God for Father Normoyle? Just do the math, and with just one Mass a day, there have been more than 25,000 Masses celebrated here at Transfiguration. And it started with a priest saying a humble Mass beside Tanner's Lake. And I have lived long enough to have watched not one but two great waves of sorrow sweep through the priesthood. I grew up during a time when priest after priest was leaving the priesthood. 3 priests in a row left my home parish as I was growing up, left the priesthood. Good men, good priests. This archdiocese, it's hard to believe, this archdiocese lost more priests during that time between 1965 and 1975 than any other diocese in America. I'm not just speaking of percentages. More priests left the priesthood here in this archdiocese in those years than in Chicago or New York or Philadelphia. And some of us are old enough to remember the heartbreak as that occurred. And I'm sure those who watched those years would say there could be nothing worse than what we saw happening in those days, but oh my, would all of us have seen over these past years the scandal, the corruption, the darkness in the priesthood and among its priests and bishops. It has been a heartbreaking time. And in these moments, in these difficult moments, I find myself not only praying for Father Normoyle, I have no certainty of where he is, but I think I do know. And I pray to him, Father Normoyle, please look down upon this parish that you started 75 years ago. Look down upon this parish that you so humbly and faithfully served. Look down upon the priest that you fostered in his vocation, Father Vianney. And I hope you will look right now at the beautiful quote by St. John Vianney in your program in front of you. St. John Vianney says, "The priesthood is not for the priest. The priesthood is for you." And I ask all of us to pray for your priests, to pray for this priest, the 9th pastor of this parish, to pray for every priest you know. And in a most special way, I ask you to do what I did when I was ordained a priest back in 1996. I looked back and prayed for all the priests who had been part of my life. Father Jositis, who baptized me, and whom I served for the first time as an altar server. Father Jositis, with his horrible breath, and with a Lithuanian name that sounded like bad breath, he had a case of Jositis. Father Tuez, bald as a cue ball, and then suddenly one day at Mass, a full head of red hair. I vowed then and there I would never attempt that. Let nature slowly take its course. Father Penn, Father Hawkins, the priest who gave me my first communion and the greatest name to this day I have ever heard, nothing but vowels, the Italian Father Joseph Yaya, I-A-I-A. What a name. What a great name. And I could go through the list. And I remember when I was ordained, I just took a moment and said, Lord, bless these priests. Most of them never knew me. They wouldn't know me by name. But thank you for bringing those priests into my life at All Saints Parish in Baltimore, at St. Paul's Parish in Old Ellicott City, Maryland, at Resurrection Parish in Columbia, and then at Christ the King in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then when I moved here to the Twin Cities, many priests, including the wonderful Father John Forliti at St. Olaf's Parish, who served as my mentor as I studied for the priesthood. Many of those priests are gone, but I thank God for them. And I ask you, in the goodness of your heart, pray for the priests that brought you the sacraments. Pray for the priests that worked hard to put the roofs over the heads of every church that you've attended. Pray for the priests who celebrated more than 25,000 masses here at Transfiguration over the past 75 years. Tonight, in just a moment, I, along with priests all over the world, renew our priestly promises. You say that Hail Mary for me, would you please? And please pray for every priest you've known whose life has been touched by you. Please, on this great feast, let us remember the priests who have brought us the most holy sacraments.